Hi guys, how are you? Um, so good to see you. I was back again. It was really nice to see most of you on Friday at our little Zoom activity. If you couldn't make it, I'm sorry I wasn't able to record it. Something went wrong. But we are looking forward to a couple more Zoom activities this week. Keep your eye out. Hopefully Wednesday morning and definitely Friday. We'll do a whole group Zoom on Friday. Um, I'm here though right now because I wanted to talk to you about reading and writing. For this week, we're going to integrate the two of them using the performance assessment book. So you should have brought the assessment book home. I'm going to kind of move myself out of the way here and bring out what you need. There we go. So yours doesn't say teacher's guide, but you have this green book at home that we use for writing about whether dogs should be allowed on the beach or not. We're done with that unit. We're going to move on to the next unit. So you're going to be looking at Unit 3, which is Response to Literature. So in your book, if you look on page 73, this is where I'm starting right now. I'm going to kind of guide you through it right now, and then you're going to work on your own. So page 73 is the beginning here. Courage comes in all sizes, and we're response to literature, which means that we know that there are lots of parts to a story. For example, we're thinking about a story map. You've got characters, you've got the setting, you've got the problem. Those are the major parts, the climax, right, and then the resolution. But when you respond to literature, and what we're going to do today and this whole week actually is we're going to analyze the way that characters affect a story, the way that the setting affects the story. For example, you may be familiar with some fractured fairy tales. For example, Cinderella. Everyone knows, well, hopefully most of you know the story of Cinderella. But you might also know that there are fractured fairy tales of Cinderella. For example, there's Cinderfella, where Cinderella is not a woman, it is a man. And the story gets reversed that way. Maybe you're familiar with Rough Face Girl or Mufaru's Beautiful Daughters. Those are all different types of Cinderella stories where the setting is different because it's from a different country. So for example, Mufaru's Beautiful Daughters came from Africa. John Steptoe is the author of that story, and you might have read that before, and we were in school, I'd read it to you because I have it in the classroom, and it's a great story. But it is called a Cinderella story, but yet there's two sisters, and there's magic, but the setting is in an African village. So the setting affects the story. Obviously, they're in an African village. They're not going to be getting all dressed up and going to a ball because that's just not what it was like in that setting. Maybe you're familiar with the Three Little Pigs story. And maybe now you've heard of the true story of the Three Little Pigs. If we were in school, I'd read that to you too because I have that book and I love that book. And then my son, actually, I have this book in school too. Woo, I wish we were in school. When they were growing up, it was a Three Little Pig story, but instead of pigs, the characters were fish. And since the characters were fish, then that changed the setting because obviously they couldn't be running around above water. So the story took place underwater, and instead of a big bad wolf, it was the big bad shark. So that's kind of looking at how the characters affect the story, how the plot is affected by the setting, because sometimes different events occur because of where the story takes place. So that's kind of a little bit of what we're going to be looking at, analyzing, similar to that this week. So if you go on to the next page, this is set up very similarly to the first unit we did, which was how they had the 3 different steps. So the first step here is we're analyzing a model. So you're going to look at a story and look at the characters and see how that affects the story, and this setting, how that affects the story. So I'm just going to read this to you. You can follow along. The main character in a novel or short story can drive the plot and keep the reader fascinated. If the character is extraordinary in some way, it is up to a great writer to make the character believable at the same time, which sometimes can be hard. There's always some way to relate to a great character, but even as the reader gets to know what the character is like, each page can bring new surprises. And that's how I always know if an author is a great writer, because I feel like the character is somebody I'll run into, at Target or at Osage or just out and about. And I feel like I know them and that I'm sad when this story ends. Each of the selections in this unit features a strong character who is not brought down by trouble. Instead, these characters show admirable courage in unexpected ways. So that's kind of the, I guess I don't want to say the theme, but what kind of connects all of these stories is that they have strong characters who are not brought down by trouble, who they all face some kind of a trouble, but they're able to overcome it maybe because of their attitude. Might want to think about that. That was a little hint there. They have an attitude and an approach to life that allows them to get through difficult times. In this unit, you will evaluate a student's description of a homeless boy who lives in an airport. Then you will write a response to a girl's adventures in a storm at sea. Great, great story. Finally, you'll read and respond to a story about an unusual girl who is larger than life. Sounds like hyperbole, maybe our tall tale kind of characters. Okay, so today we're going to look at step 1. And I'm going to end here in a minute, but the first story that you're going to be looking at, you're going to analyze a character. How can a character show courage? So this is a story called Fly Away Home. And if we were in school, I'd read it to you because I have that in school too. But I'm actually going to let you, if you want to, you can read it in your performance assessment book. It's in there. But I'm also going to link a YouTube video of a woman reading it aloud. So you can read it by yourself, or you can kind of follow along with the actual book, because Fly Away Home is an actual picture book. And then you're going to analyze the student model, calm, courage, and then you're going to answer a couple questions. So if you keep on going here, Miss Chang's student, Pilar Perez, analyzed the following story in an essay about its narrator, Andrew. As you read, make notes in the side columns, underline information that you find helpful. So this, like I said, Eve Bunting, you might be familiar with. She wrote The Mitten, you know, that giant mitten that the child lost. Now the animals kind of crawled inside of it. Good, that's another great book. Eve Bunting's a fun author. So you're going to read Fly Away Home. And like I said, if you'd like to, once I'm done here, go to the YouTube channel link that I have. You can listen to somebody reading it. And then these discuss and decide questions here. You can always take notes, obviously, in the side because you have the book. But these discuss and decide question, I have in a Google Doc that's also attached here, and you'll just write your answers there. If you want to write notes here in the side, that's great, but then you're going to have to type them into the Google Doc. And they might not be the exact same questions, but I try to condense them a little bit. So after you get done reading this, you can look at Pilar Perez's analysis. His analysis. Really good idea to kind of read what the teacher has written in the side there. Just so you can get an idea of how he analyzed the character, what his thoughts were on how this main character, Andrew, was brave. And then the last thing is that you would respond to this look back, but I'm going to have that in the Google Doc as well. But it might be a good idea to kind of look here. Literary elements such as characters, setting, and events work together to make a story. After you read, you may be asked to explain how these elements shape a story and how they interact. Like basically, how important are they to the story? Okay, so are the story's characters believable? Do they talk and act in their own individual ways? Can a reader picture the story's setting? Do the place and time add to the mood and impact events? And are the story's events convincing results of interactions among the characters and setting? So you don't want it to be too far-fetched, or it's not going to be believable. So when you're writing a response to literature, capture your ideas in a strong opening statement, right? Hook your reader, quote from the text to support your ideas according to the text. On page 85 it said, and then explain how story elements work together. So you're going to that's if you're going to write like a long response. Those tips are really, really handy, especially like the one that Pilar Perez wrote. You're going to, and this will be in the doc, find 2 events that affect the narrator. Describe the events and the narrator's responses below. So affect the narrator. What does that mean? It means something that you can tell made the narrator stop and think, made the narrator happy, made the narrator upset, something that kind of moved him emotionally, something that he had feelings over would be something that affected him. Okay? All right, and then that's where you'll stop. So this is reading and writing combined this week. So the reading part obviously is reading Fly Away Home, and then, which I think was a movie. I think I saw that maybe it would have been a movie. And then the writing part for today is going to be the responses. As we move on in the week, obviously you're going to have some bigger writing, but that's going to go with the next story, which is a cool story. I'm really excited for us to read that story too. So tomorrow will probably be another reading because it's kind of lengthy, and then Wednesday you'll actually start some real writing. So it's just a combo. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me right in Classroom, right in the assignment there, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. But enjoy the story, Fly Away Home. Maybe you've read it before, by Eve Bunting. I don't want to give too much away, but enjoy. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Are you telling me that didn't record at all?